Imagine, just for a second, Toy Story. But instead of Woody and Buzz navigating a kid's bedroom, it's two 50-year-old, totally unused condoms having an existential crisis inside an old pigskin wallet.
Yeah, definitely not your standard Pixar movie setup.
Not at all. So today we are doing a deep dive into a really clever story called Shelf Life Eternity.
Which is a book you can actually grab right off Amazon.
Yes, exactly. We actually dropped the link to it in the first comment, so our English-speaking readers worldwide can easily check it out.
And our mission today is to pull out some profound philosophical insights hidden inside this remarkably funny narrative.
Right, because what can a couple of vintage, unused talismans teach you about the human obsession with legacy? Well, our heroes here are Manjul, who is this very romantic Indian brand, and Bartholomew.
Bartholomew is a pragmatic, ribbed Swiss aristocrat.
Totally. But to really get why they are having this existential crisis, you first have to understand how they managed to survive for 5 decades without, doing the one thing they were manufactured to do.
Right, because they belong to this Englishman named Mr. Hopp, and he travels the world constantly, but he is just absolutely, completely paralyzed by a fear of women.
So they just sit untouched in his pocket for years. But that wallet actually saves his life, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. There's this crazy scene in 1979 where Hopp gets ambushed by the Mujahideen in Afghanistan.
Wow.
And they strip him of all his belongings, but the warriors actually refuse to touch his pigskin wallet because the material is considered unclean, so it survives.
That is wild.
It really is. And it creates this fascinating psychological irony. I mean, these are items engineered for, at best, maybe 15 minutes of friction.
Right.
But because of Hopp's phobia and this weird stroke of luck in the desert, they get elevated into immortal artifacts. They literally become his lucky charms.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second.
Yeah.
It's kind of like keeping a rare action figure in its mint condition packaging forever.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Like, on one hand, it survived perfectly intact. But on the other hand, is that preservation a blessing? Or is it just a tragedy of unfulfilled potential? Because they've basically built this entire religion around their own preservation.
And the mechanism of that delusion just completely violently shatters the second they are confronted with what they are actually made for.
Right. The sweltering night in Istanbul.
Exactly. They meet a modern counterpart named Elvira.
And Elvira is a recently discarded, strawberry-flavored nanotech condom, which I have to say, the nanotech detail just perfectly highlights how absurdly obsolete Manjul and Bartholomew have become.
Oh, absolutely. She is literally built with futuristic technology used for one wild night and just tossed aside. And she acts as this brutal voice of reality.
Yeah, she just casually explains that they aren't meant to be worldly travelers admiring minarets.
Right. She tells them they're a temporary barrier discarded immediately after the battle. And hearing this, Manjul just has a total psychological breakdown.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, because I kind of want to push back on Elvira's worldview here.
How so?
Well, sure, she gets to fulfill her intended purpose, but is 15 minutes of chaotic, disposable use genuinely better than 50 years of surviving wars and traveling the globe?
It's a really great question, but you have to look at the why of their survival. Manjul and Bartholomew didn't survive because they were special or brave.
Right.
They survived because their owner was terrified. Elvira is essentially arguing that a life unlived, no matter how long, isn't really a life at all. She just fully accepts her short, bright existence.
But the irony is, neither side really gets to control their legacy anyway. Right after this super heavy philosophical debate, a gust of wind blows Elvira right out the window.
Yeah, and her grand destiny. A third-grade schoolboy finds her, fills her with water, and drops her as a glowing pink water bomb right onto his school principal's head.
Which sounds completely meaningless, but it actually alters history.
It does. The story reveals that this boy, emboldened by his new legendary status in the schoolyard, grows up to become one of Turkey's most famous military generals.
Wow, so her brief, chaotic use had massive, totally unintended consequences.
Exactly. And meanwhile, what happens to our untouched heroes? Hopp eventually dies of old age in an armchair, his stuff gets sold off, and Manjul and Bartholomew end up behind armored glass at an erotic museum in Amsterdam.
Which is just the ultimate punchline.
It really is. The plaque next to them describes this pigskin wallet as the arsenal of a legendary 20th century Casanova.
So the museum completely fabricates a wild, vibrant, romantic life for the deeply shy Mr. Hopp. It just perfectly illustrates the difference between utility and legacy.
Yeah, history isn't necessarily what actually happened, it's just what everyone agrees to believe. They find peace as exhibits as a legend, even though the legend is a complete lie.
Exactly. Whether you're a high-tech water bomb or a vintage museum exhibit, your story is ultimately written by whoever is left to tell it. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Look at the mundane objects sitting on your own desk right now.
Like a coffee mug, a paperclip, or a sticky note.
Exactly. If history is just a collective agreement, what completely fabricated heroic legend will future museums assign to your most ordinary possessions?